Welcome to Potentiality, a space for big questions, deep conversations, and shared wisdom around the most meaningful thing we do as human beings, which is how we parent and educate the next generation. I want to introduce today's guest, Ashley Blanco, an artist, educator, and the visionary of Educate to Invigorate. Ashley's work lives at the intersection of creativity, learning, and human development, where she helps young people and families reconnect with learning as a lived, integrated experience. She brings a deeply grounded and embodied approach to growth, one that goes beyond academics and into how we think, create, relate, and make meaning of our lives. Welcome, Ashley. I've been really looking forward to our conversation today.
Thank you, Dr. Alina. I'm looking forward to a delicious conversation.
Thank you so much. Ashley, I do believe after all the work that I've done as an educator, as a parent, and as somebody who's been deep into healing for the past 8 years or so, that most of our problems in the world is the result of fragmentation at different levels, primarily stemming from internal fragmentation, then that shows up in so many unpleasant and an undesirable way in the external world. And you speak a lot about living and learning in an integrated way. And I really want us to unpack this topic today. So, what does integrated learning really mean to you and in the work that you do?
Wonderful, big question. Integrated learning for me means the brain is in communication with the body in a way that creates a sense of exuberance, presence, the capacity to address negativity within ourselves, identify shifting emotional states, and using our bodies as vehicles for purpose and for understanding. And to be more practical with that, it's funny you use the word healing because I work at this school and I love it. It's Meadows Livingstone School here in San Francisco. It's the only Afrocentric school here in San Francisco, one of few in the Bay Area. And I teach math and the introduction to the scientific method. Sometimes I have to park my car a few blocks away, more than a few blocks away because they're kind of long. And where I park my car always reminds me of some people from my earlier childhood experiences that are no longer here. They have gone on, they've passed away. One of them is my grandpa, and he wasn't biologically my grandpa. We adopted him, and he was a family friend. Another person is my dad and my mom, who are still living and still active. But I think about these people, I think about my mom working at the hospital because it's in this mission district of San Francisco. And I say all that to say I'm reminded of who was there for my sister and me when my mom was working. And we experienced a tremendous amount of grief at different levels, losing family members, having to move around, housing insecurity, financial insecurity. And those things stuck with me for a really long time. When I go to park my car in this particular area, I'm reminded of my grandpa and how he took an interest in us and how he hung out with us. My feet are also on the ground while I'm walking, and I can feel the sun, I can feel the wind, I see the flowers, I see the birds. And that's an example of integrated living. I can remember the past, but I'm very present in this moment. I'm current, I'm connecting who's loved me along the way to what I'm contributing right now and who I'm loving in the present moment. So I hope for the listeners that that makes sense. When we talk about being integrated, the brain and the body are in connection. It's active. Even in stillness, there's still activity because you're gaining some insight. You're gaining some clarity. But the other part is when we talk about the timeline, you can remember the past. You can think about what's possible in the future, but you stay current and you stay in the flow of the moment. And I think that is a great example of integrated living.
Such a beautiful answer. And absolutely, it's being in the present while holding the past with tenderness and with love and the lessons, sometimes
Yeah.
very challenging ones. And then from that, really imagining the possible, the most compelling, probably future, because you're absolutely right. The future is actually born in the present, right? In our presence with this moment, with the present moment. Ah, so beautifully said. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
really referring to all those challenges. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably, first of all. And I think a lot of our audience and me thinking of my experience with youth, I can relate as so many families have those hardships. And we, growing up as children, really have very difficult moments. And that really shapes us, and how we hold it in the present moment is really where we can make a difference, and we can really move forward with a different intention. Um, so that really brings me to the question that I want to ask Ashley. Learning can be really described and understood in many different ways. A lot of times, learning is equated to the education that happens in the school system, in that school structure, and really does not translate or transfer into our daily life. So academic learning really remains, within the confines of the classroom oftentimes. And so I really want to ask you, when you look at most children, how most children experience learning today, where do you see the biggest disconnect between school and real life, or maybe the way school presents learning? What is your experience with that?
It's very interesting. The word academic, it sort of displaces kids in the sense that they'll start to say, I'm not a scholar. It was always say academic, academia, scholar. And I have to use different words because I'm like, kids, this is for your future as well. So I say content, knowledge, application. Now that's a little bit longer, but I say that to say the disconnect happens when they think learning is something that happens somewhere else. It doesn't happen inside of them. And learning, while there are many definitions, one I like to say is it's a series of mental associations that lead to a permanent change or a temporary change. Permanent could seem too long, but it leads to a change in the attitudes, the behaviors, the actions that we take. Okay. And so when I think about where is the drop off, learning is equated to school. And then by the time the children meet me as teenagers, they're upset because they think they're in school when they're learning. Someone say, no, learning does not equal school. Learning happens all around us. So, what I think I'm on track, but I may be veering off a little bit, where we can support kids in bridging that disconnection is by saying learning happens all around us. Academics is simply knowledge buckets. You can do math, you can do writing, you can do reading, but these are foundational life skills. A person who can't read, write, count, reason, they're going to have a really hard life. And that's not about academics. That's about being able to, to apply the knowledge and make something meaningful of it.
Thank you for that answer. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to repeat the definition of learning that you just gave. I think that was beautiful. And I would, if you don't, and I know it will probably come out slightly differently, and that's perfectly fine. But also reframing academics as buckets of knowledge, which are very useful and necessary, and really giving them the belief that they can be a scholar. This takes me to my days in the classroom and as a principal, what I would greet every student walking in as a scholar. Instead of giving their name or maybe saying just good morning, I would say good morning, scholar. And I know other principals who've done that, but at the same time, framing learning as something that happens all the time and everywhere. We're living, learning every moment of our lives. So thank you so much for that. But let's go back to that definition. I really want this to really stand out in our conversation because
Yeah.
that was so powerful.
So I say there's many, a series of mental associations that create a permanent or less permanent change in the attitudes, behaviors, and actions of a person.
Beautiful. And that definition really makes sense coming from you as a brain-based coach. Now, Ashley, I really want to frame this question for our parents, really ask for them. So if we shift from education happens at school, because oftentimes this is this detached, it happens somewhere from, the perspective of a family, especially if there are a lot of challenges in the family. So instead of education happens at school to learning happens everywhere, if that shift happens, then how does that shift really change the role of a parent or a caregiver in helping their child or children integrate learning?
So there's a few things. Parents can have different roles in the educational process. And I'm going to speak from the role of the parent is doesn't know whether to be active or active. So they can be, you know, hovering over the child, doing the homework for them. They can be not involved at all. They can be, the warden of the prison where it feels like I'm just making sure everything stays intact so they can get their homework done and we go on to something else. What I would say, even in that description, is parents have to own their authority as facilitators of learning. When children are babies, we want them to wear the cutest clothes and we pay attention to who washes their hands and what food they're eating, what diapers they're wearing. Is this hyperallergenic, X, Y, and Z? That same level of attention needs to be applied to our 7 year olds, our 9 or 12-year olds, and saying, I'm a facilitator. And when you are making the shift from academics happen at school versus learning happens everywhere, you begin to see all of the different instructional opportunities, all of the different facilitative uh, qualities of your environment. What do I mean by that? Well, if you have a table, paper, pencil, and a stereo, you say, you know what, we're going to transition into our next activity with some writing or some drawing. And the child may say, oh, I don't want to do that. We'll say, well, you know what? Let's do it together and let's start with 5 minutes. Let's see how we feel after 3 minutes. Now you are building a variety of skills. You're building uh, time awareness, time management, self awareness emotionally, executive functioning, which goes into planning and prioritizing first this, then this, being able to regulate internally. There are so many skills that we build when we decide to pause, to transition, and to say, you know what? Now we're going to use our resources in this environment to create a different experience for ourselves. And that, in and of itself, is very powerful because you're putting the the responsibility and something in the reward into the child's hands, saying, look what happens when you use what you have. You don't have to go far. So for the parents who are listening, I would say use what you have. You don't need to go outside the home to buy all of these things. I'm pretty sure you already have these materials. And we're talking about writing, we talk about grouping, helping kids to understand with division. We are distributing these objects across these groups. And this is the process. I say, don't just give me the answer because today's kids are very smart. They can give me the answer. I say, show me the process. And they may not like it as much sometimes, but they know with me the standard is the standard. So everybody suffers the same now. Everybody is going to do it, and I'm doing it with them. So I hope that gives some insight to listeners on how learning is all around us. I can go on and on, but I know we have a brief amount of time.
Thank you so much. There was so much packed in that answer, and I was actually taking notes because I want to dive a little deeper into all of those because you've already alluded to some of the questions that I want to ask. So I want to reframe it before we move forward. One thing that stood out to me, you said parents need to own their authority as facilitators. And I don't know how many parents think of themselves as facilitators of learning in those daily moments. So that was very powerful. You also spoke to the way you gave a more kind of a broad example of how it can be done in order to bring out this intrinsic motivation in a child by modeling your own inner coherence and
Mm,
really attuning with them, this attuned connection with the
yes,
child to really address what's in the moment and help them bring that to the surface
yes,
rather than
yes,
providing rigid structures within which the child needs to operate and almost comply. That's a very different approach to learning in general. And this is what I feel allows the seamless and easy integration because then the child owns the process. Right? You said, just show me the process. I think oftentimes what we do in the field of education, this is all outcome driven. Give me the product, right? What's the
mhm,
final outcome versus let's just engage in this attuned, connected way
yes,
with our coherent, inner coherence and dynamic, the relational coherence and let's integrate that learning in the most authentic, organic, and natural way. Like you
yes,
just, I think that's what I got from your question, from your
yes.
answer, but there's so much in it. So I really want us to dive a little deeper into some components of it, if you don't
Mhm.
mind.
Let's do it.
Yes. So I really want to speak to those to that inner coherence because I strongly believe that inner development and that inner equanimity is foundation of all learning. So what role does awareness, you mentioned that,
Mhm.
awareness, emotional regulation, and inner coherence of the parent actually,
Yes.
or of the facilitator of the learning process plays in this, like in real time. So, what are the roles of awareness, emotional regulation, and inner coherence of the parent in helping child learn in this integrated way?
The first thing that comes to mind is, and I teach this to all the parents I connect with, you have to decide from the beginning how much energy you're going to distribute so that you can make it to your finish line. So you can't, if you have 100%, or if you have 80, or if you have 60, whatever you have to decide to pace yourself. Talk about awareness, self regulation. That's going to help you to pace yourself. Okay, now you may only have 30 minutes and you may only have 60% of your normal amount of energy for this particular activity. You're still at 100 and you still have a finish line. So now we're talking about cognitive restructuring. Whenever I do something, I have to structure this activity in a way to where I can get it done because I want to feel enjoyment, a sense of pride. I want to enjoy my students. I love them. I the other part with self-awareness is I know how loud I can get. You may not say, "What? You get loud?" Yes, I get very loud. And I whether I'm celebrating or I'm admonishing the children, I'm very clear. And I know that sometimes that doesn't work getting so loud. And now I'm at a place where when I feel myself getting loud, I lower my voice. That's self awareness. Because this little body, even if they're 12 years old and they're 6'1", they're still young. This young person is going to receive my emotional impact at a level that I'm not aware how long it's going to stick, how deep it's going to land. So I'm going to lower my voice because the goal is to make a positive impact that helps them to create the change in their attitudes, beliefs, behavior, etc. And so, regardless of how much time you have, regardless of how much energy you have, always see yourself as having 100 because 30% is 30%. But what's 30% of 30%? Or no, what's 100% of 30%? 100%. some new math, okay? So you have to say, okay, I've got to make it to the finish line. What's your objective? Maybe you can only focus on one thing to accomplish. Maybe it's three. But if you have one thing, you pace yourself so you can get to that objective. If you have three, you pace yourself. And with parents, take the brain breaks. I know with my students how hard I can work them before they have to take a brain break. Why? Because I'm paying attention. And the thing is, I need them to give me 100%. So when they've depleted their 100, we recharge and then we keep going. But I know I'm saying a lot, so you may have to rewind this part on the podcast. But I do this every day. And as adults, we have got to make sure that we can make it to the finish line because then you blame your kids saying, I always do these things and you don't appreciate me. It's like, oh, you don't appreciate yourself. So you're doing all this stuff and you're not pacing yourself.
Yeah, so really know how much energy you have for this and how you're going to
Mm-hmm.
distribute it and for how long
Mm-hmm.
in order to sustain the quality almost of that engagement, the meaningful,
Yes.
deep engagement with the child throughout the entire time.
Yes.
That's very powerful. There's another powerful thing that you said is that as an adult, I don't know the impact that I'm making and at what level and how long then it will be sustained, what beliefs they're going to form as a result of this interaction. And I really want to go there for a quick second because this podcast is really about making the invisible visible and as a result of it, the potential tangible. So, what are children actually learning from us that we're not explicitly teaching, let's say in a process like this, when the parent owns their facilitator's role and then enters this interaction with the inner coherence, with attunement? What does it really feel like from a child's perspective? And what does the lack of it do? So I really want you to show us the contrast because I can
Mm-hmm.
structure a 30-minute activity and be forceful and on top of it and create a structure and demand, just keep them on time. So there's very different approach. The outcome can be the same. The product will be created as a result of this 30 minutes, but what the child will interpret, what they will internalize as a result of it may be very different. And the way it will impact their future will also be very different. What limiting beliefs might be created as a result, or the sense of empowerment that might be created as a result. So, I really want us to unpack that because we oftentimes make an impact that we're unaware of. We don't explicitly teach, but it stays with the young person forever. So, what does this look like from the child's perspective? If you maybe could give one specific example, if it's done
Mm-hmm.
in this way versus in a more kind of a structured and forceful way, although the tangible outcome, in terms of an academic outcome, it can be identical.
Okay. Emotional tone is, I'll just use negative and positive to simplify.
Mhm.
The parent is impatient, frustrated, doesn't know how to do the homework, can't remember the skill sets required, or doesn't know. That emotional tone is going to feel very heavy. It's going to feel very rigid or chaotic because the child has to hurry up and make sure that mommy and daddy are okay because children do try to take care of their parents. Not all of them, but some of them are emotional caretakers without having to be asked. And if the parent is impatient, frustrated, uh, the child begins to internalize the emotional tone at the start of the assignment. And then when they make a mistake, it's too big. I can't handle it. They can't handle it. I just don't know what to do. And so now you're causing a reaction, fight, flight, freeze, you know, and fawn. But I don't really see kids fawning as much like, okay, I'll just do it. No, they're not. Not this assignment. They're going to shut down. So they begin to downshift, shifting from the higher order thinking into the emotional part of the brain. And that term is from uh, founders of the brain based learning movement, Renata and Jeffrey Kane, if I remember their names correctly. Now, the contrast is the parent has time because they've made time. They still have an emotional tone. Every parent has an emotional tone. And so they've made time, they have time, they understand we have 30 minutes. If we can't get through it, we're going to get back to it. Okay. And if we can't get back to it, your teacher's going to help you. So, and I'll get into that in a moment. But the difference is the child feels the parent's openness. There's boundaries set. We have this much time to get this thing done. Show me what you're doing. Okay, show me how your teacher taught you to do it. Because sometimes the parent, us millennials learn multiplication one way. They got the area method. And so it's like, what? Show me what they showed you. Okay. And then the parent is patient. They're kind to their child while they're learning. And the difference between child A and child B is child A experiences themselves as less loved. And this is psychologically, this is brutal as we grow into adulthood. The child B experiences being loved while learning. So we have less loved and loved. And so it's just like, oh, how much more of an interest and how much more curiosity can the child, because there's space. Now you don't want to have too much space because then the child is just, wet noodle and they don't, oh, I think I remember what someone said in class. It's like, hold up, let's stay on task. So the emotional tone is set. One child feels like they have little to no time and they cannot make a mistake. The other child feels like they have more time to learn and understand, and mistakes are welcomed.
Beautiful. Really, every parent and every adult, every human has an emotional tone in any interaction, but how crucial it can be in scenarios like this when the child, as a result of an experience, feels that I am not loved, only because you've described the states of a nervous system, because their nervous system was on high alert and in a shutdown. It just did not feel safe because of the rigidity, the structure, maybe the forcefulness, and almost the demand for a specific outcome. Thank you so much. And I really want now to bring the other side of you. You're an incredible educator and facilitator of learning and designer of learning in environments, but you're also a creative, you're an artist. And I really want you to bring that side of you into this conversation by asking a question that you integrate creativity into your work with youth as an artist quite naturally. And so, how does creative expression support deeper learning and identity development in children and integrated learning as a result? So, how even parents, like how you do it, and how parents maybe can integrate some sort of creative process in order to help the child integrate their learning better because their nervous system will be fully engaged and open to this process now. So, how do you do that? And what would you recommend that parents do when it comes to creativity and different types of artistry?
So there's a few things that come to mind. The quickest creative thing I do is move and sing. And music is so powerful. I don't play any instruments, but I always make up songs to reinforce a concept, whether it's, a directive I've given them, like come to class. And so, for example, it just came to me. But this is the beauty of coherence because I'm relaxed and I'm ready to learn and I'm anticipating any possibility. I am in a more settled state. And so I spelled COMETOCLASS, come to class. I said that 7 times. And now every time we start, that's what they're writing that, they're singing it. Movement. When a child is feeling anxiety or frustration or impatience, just jumping and bouncing the shoulders really hard to where it's like, okay. And then you can feel your heart rate again. It's almost like it brings you into the present moment when you can feel your heart rate. We talk about drawing. Drawing is amazing because you're connecting your eye to your hand. There's a certain level of sensory integration happening just holding the pen or the marker or the paintbrush in your fingers and being able to communicate what is visual without having to use words. So there's a lot of reinforcement learning that's happening, and I want to say in the basal, thalamic, cortical, this whole beautiful region involved in reinforcement learning. So with that, it can be coloring how we feel. It can be as basic as drawing emotion monsters and say, well, let me guess, draw a monster and let me guess what you're feeling. And they have funny eyes and different colors. And just taking a moment to go straight to the heart with art, it makes a difference. So those are some ways that I do it. And when we talk about colors and for me, painting in oil, I've been experimenting with using less colors to create different blends. And it's just so lovely when you create some boundaries to what you're creating and you say, okay, I've got 4 colors. How many shades of colors can I create within this? Or what gradient can I create with these 4 colors? And they're complementary colors, but even doing that type of activity with a child for them to discover how much more can we create when we're calm and attentive. I hope that answers the question.
It absolutely does. And you really you named a number of ways to do it, but they all fit into two categories, the way I understand. And correct me if I'm wrong, is really coming back into the body through movement, really reconnecting with the body. And that brings us into the present moment because the mind is always somewhere. It's in the past or in the future, the untrained mind, right? So any type of movement really brings you into the body and the heart, really connecting with your emotions, whether that's through music, through drawing, through anything. And some of them can be both movement, and connection with the heart. So it's really all about our emotions and the physical body when we ground ourselves in either one of those and really help the mind. Right, this mind-body alignment is now created, and we can really act from a completely different state at this point. Beautiful. I want to give you a practical real life scenario. We know, especially in more developed countries, the fast pace of life. And a lot of times, as a working parent, especially as a working mom, because I was one of them for many, many years. My kids are grown now, they're in their 20s and 30s. But for the longest time, I remember that my time with them was the car ride, right? Really, because everything else was filled up with some sort of responsibility related to taking care of the kids, of the household, of the family, or the work. So to get very practical, those parents who they really have the desire to try everything that we've talked about today, if they haven't done that yet, and really bring this integrated learning into daily moments, into daily life, and they're so limited in the time with their kids. So if that's their commute from work to school and just picking up from soccer practice, what can it possibly look like to make it very practical for them to feel like, okay, I can do it today when I pick up my kids from
Yeah.
school?
Well, the commute, you want to prepare your children to gradually release their devices so you can actually talk and sing and tell stories in the car. As soon as those devices come on, doesn't matter how old anybody is, everybody goes quiet. And so, what I would say for parents is practice uh, preparing your children to not have their devices the whole time. Because if you have a 2 hour commute, it's easy to put that device on. So, you know what, we're going to try reducing the time, whatever that is for you. When we were younger, we would watch when it was raining, the drops would fall down the window and we would see which ones would race the fastest. And I forgot about that memory until someone made a video. And I said, oh my goodness, yes, that's what we did. We didn't have devices. For everyone's reference, I was born in 1986. So I know, it's like, yeah, we did not have that. And so having a little notebook or maybe your phone of activities, go to quick start activities. because there's so many that you can have. It can be questions. And when you ask questions, instead of asking, how was your day? I like to ask when they felt certain emotions during the day. That creates 90 different questions that are a variation of how was your day? When did you feel surprised? When did you feel worried? When did you feel dot, dot, dot? The other thing is, so what's something new you're learning at school? Oh, da, 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 da. Okay. And well, let's make up a song about it to help you remember that thing that's hard for you. Because songs, as soon as it comes on, it could be in the middle of a song and you know that next part. So there's so many ways to engage on the commute, but you have to be intentional. You have to plan and you tell your children, we're going to do something different because I want to spend more time with you. I want to enjoy you more. We're not going to be young forever. And I tell my kids that we do not have that much time. And we literally don't because we only have an hour in our workshop. But I really want to enjoy them. So set that intention to enjoy your children and then take it from there.
Set that intention to enjoy your children. That's beautiful because I know a lot of conversations in the car like, oh, how was your day at school? And the kid goes, good. What did you do? Math. And that's where it ends, right? So it's very typical because we're all caught up in, taking care or thinking or planning the next thing that we need to do as adults. So thank you for sharing that. Ashley, I
Oh,
want
and
to
can
ask
I
you,
add?
go
I
ahead, of
just want to
course.
add one more thing. I know parents are busy. The way to deepen your intentionality with your kids is to learn something about what they're learning. Don't just say, oh, I haven't done that in years. Take the time to learn it so you can connect. Okay, if they're in fourth grade and you're converting improper fractions to mixed numbers, refresh your mind so you can put yourself in your child's position of learning and then you can connect with them more. But don't just say, I don't have time for that. It's like, no, make time. That's how you're going to enjoy them more.
Yeah, absolutely make time. And it's important to really speak of that intentionality because parents are overwhelmed. I mean, we
Mhm.
understand the demands of the modern time, and there is no blame. It's quite understandable. They are overwhelmed, and we don't want this to feel like, oh, I have to do more, like I'm not doing enough. But it's just like little uh, tweaks, like little shifts here and there that is coming from that intention. They're manageable and they can fit within the same structure of the day that you already have when the approach is different. It's not more, right? It's
Yeah.
just slightly different. Now, Ashley, I really want to ask you because in the moment it might feel difficult and one more thing to do, but I really want us to talk about why this matters so much long term. What kind of adults do we raise when learning is lived in an environment rather than assigned, which is how it's often viewed? I have homework to do, I have class assignment to do, I have project to do. So going from this shift, making this shift from going to learning is assigned versus learning is lived in an environment.
Mm,
And as a parent, I am the designer of that environment, even if it's just the car ride, it's still an environment.
mm. Be curious. That's number one, is to be curious. And if you don't want to add anything new, just take what you're doing and ask, what's another way to do this? What's another way? Um, when we talk about learning as a lived experience, you can take an object and say, what are 20 questions you have about this? There you go. And you're gonna just be loose. You may want to move the body, you know, shake it up a little bit and then say, okay, what are 20 questions I have about this? Who made it? Where did it come from? Where are the parts from? Why this color? What were they thinking? Just and so that's learning. That's a scientific method. We have to observe, we have to make an hypothesis, we have to, make inferences. Everyone's so impressed with AI being able to make an inference. Who made inferences first? Humans. Let's teach our children how to infer, you know. And so be curious, observe things, always ask questions. And when you are teaching your child how to ask questions, I would introduce the idea of having them to ask questions while laying down or sitting back in their chair lazily versus sitting up alert or standing up and moving close to that thing. Because that right there is four different body positions and it changes how we engage. How do your questions change when you're laying down and you're holding your phone in your hand versus when you're standing up and you're looking up close and your phone is behind you? There are so many wonderful ways, and we haven't bought anything. All we did was make time and what I mean, where those flowers come from, and why is that leaf that shape? And now let's draw it. And how many different ways could we draw this? And what happens if we add different colors? The style of cubism, the style of this, the style of that. I mean, there are just so many ways to enjoy life. We just got to pause and get into it.
Thank you so much, Ashley. It was really true. Like we haven't even paid a penny for any of this, right? It doesn't cost anything. It's how you think, right? It's more of an internal shift for the parent themselves. And with that, we've talked about a lot. And if we can just kind of summarize down to one perspective or one internal shift that the parent can walk away from today's conversation feeling, I can do this. This is very accessible, very manageable, and I actually want to enjoy this myself. Something that excites them to start being more intentional with how they engage with their children to help them integrate learning as a lived experience in the moment. What's that one internal shift or perspective that you would suggest?
You know, my therapist told me years ago, meet people where you can enjoy them. And I just love that because being a little helper, little fixers, you can't really enjoy people when you're always trying to help them. And so with parents, they may be feeling like I'm always trying to help. I don't know what to do. Just find that place where you can enjoy them. And the next step will be revealed. You can't see the next step when you're rigid and fragmented and angry and, but just relax. The next step is always being revealed. Just meet your child where you can enjoy them and not on the phone. Mm.
Yes, that's really an important addition. Absolutely. When we overstructure, we don't allow what wants to emerge from us, right, to reveal itself. But when we relax and just kind of let things happen naturally, the next thing reveals itself. Absolutely true. Ashley, this podcast is called Potentiality. So I really want us to zoom out and kind of take bird's eye view, if I may say. If we truly help young people see learning as a whole life process, not just academic performance, what then becomes possible for the collective? What becomes possible for the larger humanity when all our children grow up in environments when learning, growth, and life are fully integrated?
We we shift from the work-life balance to rest, play, work. We're able to benefit from purpose and contribution versus seeking status and approval. And we raise adults who actually care about people, who turn their neck when they're driving, who have a level of regard, and they make time to listen when asking someone, "How are you?" And they've got something to give other than, "Well, you should do this." And so zooming out, we create people who are more alive, who are more willing, who value the different generations of people on the earth. It's not the world is not only young people or old, it's all of us. We're here together. And we just take more of an interest and have more of a reverence for the life flowing through people. So that's what I see.
And that reminded me of one of the founders of a large personal development company. I don't know if you're familiar with Mind Valley. The founder actually calls the way he lives his life is work play. Those are exactly,
Mm.
as a compound word, work play. And that's exactly what you name rest, work, play. And it might feel like it's easier said than done, when you're well off, but it's the it's how you view life. It's again, it's intentionality behind it and how you choose to live. And that's what gives you an opportunity to create those big things for the world. It's actually not the other way around. The stress does not, the work play does.
It's so exciting.
Now, Ashley, what excites you these days on the personal or professional frontier? What gets you up in the morning ready to go?
It gets me up, lighting a candle in the morning and just being still and watching it burn is something I actually look forward to in the morning before I have coffee. So I really do appreciate there's something so special about the light in the darkness of the morning for me. And I look forward to, my days are varied. So one day I'm here, next day I'm there. And I love seeing the people who are a part of my life on a weekly basis. I look forward to seeing them. And I'm painting more, So I started painting last night. I'm going to do two at a time so I can kind of bounce between the two. But I really enjoy that process because for 24 years, I was on this sabbatical and I had such a negative attitude towards painting because of my experiences in high school. But now I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is great, And so just really enjoying that and making sure I move my body, going to the beach to listen to the water. I'm not much for putting my feet in the sand because I got sensory preferences and sand is not one of them, but playing with the dog. So I don't have children, I'm not married, and I have such a fullness to my singleness. I get to be a part of people's lives, which is a blessing, so I enjoy that.
Yes, it truly is a blessing. That's beautiful. And I also want to share, like sometimes when you get older, it feels like there is really no time for taking on to a different hobby or different, um, you know, cr like express ways of expressing yourself, right? Or just learning a new skill. And one thing that really gets me going these days, in addition to everything that I do, I've recently started learning the piano, how to play the piano,
Mm,
which has been a childhood dream and it never really actualized. And so
wow.
that gives me so much joy when I realize, as I touch the instrument, how much energy was just trapped somewhere and suspended for decades. Now that I get to release, it spills over into all other areas of my life and really transforms it in the most beautiful and unexpected way. So, with that, I really want to encourage our parents to try those things. First of all, for yourself, and then bring it to others, like you said, because when we're our best, we show up as our best for others.
Absolutely. And I tell you, painting has unleashed a new level of being able to see and be happy. So I hope that all the parents listening would feel like they can use what they have in a more significant way. You know, just do it. Just do it. Today is the best day to do whatever you got to do.
Absolutely. Today is the best day. Now, Ashley, where can our audience find you and learn more about the amazing work that you do, a very important work that you do with our youth, families, and educators, and actually entire communities as well?
Absolutely. RiseWhereYouAre.com. All standard spelling RISE, whereyouare.com. I've got some great resources. I'm really passionate about career connected learning, so you can download that PDF for free. Also, the 5-day challenge, which helps families and teachers to build the emotional awareness and executive functioning in their kids. And there's a host of other resources you can access there. And I also have ashleyblanco.com. You can connect to that site from Rise Where You Are. And then from there, you can see my YouTube channel, Ashley the Kids Coach Blanco, TikTok and Instagram, Ashley the Kids excuse me, Ashley, the kids coach. So I'm all over. And I don't consider myself a content creator because my videos are not highly produced. I'm an educator who speaks on video. So there you go. But have fun. And I'd love to have you join me in the 5 day challenge or the 30-day challenge where we're preparing our kids for a bouquet of opportunities they can enjoy.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I really hope our audience will take away some very important nuggets. I've been taking notes of all those important phrases that I want to keep. I hope you don't mind. But a
Please.
lot of things really stood out, and I really want to kind of cherish them and just keep them close. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your expertise, your wisdom, your passion. I think it comes across very clearly how passionate you are about the work that you do. So thank you for sharing this space with me today.
Thank you, Dr. Elena.
And for our audience, I really want to thank you for tuning in today's episode. And I sincerely hope that you found it insightful and valuable. All the resources that Ashley shared with you, all the links will be in the description box under this video. So please remember to check them out. And please remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. It really means a lot to us. It helps the growth of the channel, and you will never miss an episode. I will see you next time.